Hi, everyone. It's so wonderful to have so many of you join us for the first of our two summer programs. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Matthew Silverman, the Executive Director of the Haberman Institute for Jewish Studies. And I hope you all enjoyed this screening of the film Chueta Island, A Hidden History. What a fascinating story of identity and belonging. We invite you to learn more about our programs and classes by visiting our website, habermaninstitute.org. Our next program is another afternoon learning opportunity, this time exploring Angels in Judaism on October 2nd with Gidon Amir. Gidon is not just a master teacher in the DC area, but also a favorite teacher to so many of our longtime Haberman students. You can register on our website and learn more about our fall classes. If you have any questions during our presentation today, please click on the Q&A button on your Zoom screen. We look forward to discussing your questions during the program. I am honored to introduce to you the directors of the film, who will be sharing their thoughts and experiences on the creation of this documentary and taking your questions today. First, Danny Rothstein, the producer, protagonist, and co-director. As a content producer, entrepreneur, and storyteller, Danny settled in Majorca in 2014. After years of traveling the world, producing advertisements for large commercial firms. With his partner, Carla Sands Roses Siskar, Danny founded Jewish Majorca, an initiative that offers historical tours of the old town of Palma and organizes constant social events to promote Jewish activities on the island. In addition, Danny produces and supervises the editing of video content and design content strategies for social networks of different clients. He is also active in Limud Majorca, a cultural association that he founded together with Carla in 2018. Next, we welcome Ofar Lazwiki, the co-director. Based in Barcelona, Ofar collaborated for years as a freelancer for a multitude of media in Spain and Latin America. A multimedia journalist with a master's degree in international politics from the Pompeu Fabra University in Barcelona. He is currently editor and announcer on the program Kan in Spanish of the National Radio of Israel and correspondent for the newspaper La Razón. Ofar also films and edits videos for social networks and international press agencies. In 2017, he published the book Israel Out of Focus, Portraits of Society Beyond the Conflict, a selection of reports that explores the diversity of Israel society. Ofar also worked in production and script writing for documentaries published on the Israeli channels Kan 11 and I-24 News. And last, Felipe Wolokita, the co-director, director of photography, and editor, a graduate in film and television from Tel Aviv University. Felipe has been working since 2012 on the production and filming of documentaries, as well as on content for media and international agencies. He is originally from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and immigrated to Israel in 2007. He currently lives in Tel Aviv. His film, The Prince and the Frog, was shown on Channel 8 in Israel and at film festivals around the world. He produced and filmed dozens of television programs, documentaries, and video clips in Israel, the Palestinian territories, the Balkans, Spain, Brazil, Turkey, and Greece. And with that, I now invite Danny to open our program and share with us his inspiration for producing this very special film. Welcome, Danny.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's really, really exciting to be speaking and to be sharing our film with your community, with everyone at the Haberman Institute. I have numerous friends in the United States who forwarded me the invitation to watch the film that are connected to your institution. So it's really special. It's really exciting. I had my mother selling the entire time. She works in Jewish education at HUC in New York, and so she also was sending me a lot of exciting emails at this event. So thank you so much. I thought before jumping in and speaking about how I got to Mallorca and also the subsequent idea for making this film together with Ofer and Felipe, we thought we would treat everyone, those of you who've already seen the film in the last few days, with something that is not online. It's not really something that's available. It's kind of like a music video we made, because what you may or may not know is that the entire soundtrack of the film is original. It's an original piece of work by our composers Sergi Sayez and Lucho Steiner, and with a lot of incredible talent locally here in Mallorca. So we took like our favorite song, which rolls through the credits, and we put a lot of different images, and we actually have some footage of when we were filming the making of this soundtrack. So hopefully you all enjoy this little video clip to get us started for today. Oh, and please, as the questions come up by watching these images, feel free to put them in the Q&A so we can have lots and lots of questions when the time for the Q&A comes.
Keep on trying, keep on believing, I keep on hoping all my life. I keep on trying. I keep on hoping, keep on believing, I keep on trying. Keep on hoping. Yeah, that I know. Keep on hoping, keep on believing, I keep on hoping. All my life.
What do you think?
Yeah, nice.
Yeah?
Good. We can do another.
So thanks everyone for watching that and getting us back into the spirit of the film. I know it might have been a couple days for some of you to watch that. The singer who you would have seen in the film is Manny Hoffman. He's Sephardic. His family's from Algeria originally, but he's from France. He's actually a very well-known music producer, and so he gifted us his voice for the film. He's one of the members of our Jewish community here in Mallorca. Yeah, basically to jump right into it, my name is Donnie Rodstein, born and raised in New Jersey. I moved to Mallorca to work as a producer on TV commercials. Totally thought I was going to be the only Jewish person living here on the island, and when I got here for work purposes, I found out about the synagogue. And so I was really excited to have a synagogue. It's true, it is started by British expats in the 70s, and it's an Orthodox shul. I was raised in the egalitarian community, conservative, reform in New Jersey. So more accustomed to sitting, together, men and women. But beggars can't be choosers, and I was very happy to have a synagogue in Mallorca. And I remember this first time that I went to the synagogue. There was no rabbi, no chazan, just a volunteer who leads every Friday night. And he said, because we don't have a minyan, because we don't have 10 Jewish men in the Orthodox tradition, we have to skip one of the prayers, the Kaddish, for example. And I remember counting 14 men in the men's section. And I asked the guy next to me, why are we skipping? We have 14, we have more than a minyan. And he said to me, that's because some of these men are not Jewish, they must be chueta. And that was the first time I heard this word you see behind me, chueta, spelled with an X. And after seeing the film, you obviously know what that entails. I did not know what that meant. That was in 2014. And that, started me on a journey of learning about this, pretty not very well-known history, especially in the English-speaking world, and even among certain academics in the Jewish world. I almost found only 3 books anywhere written originally in English about the Chuetas of Mallorca. And I thought it was just fascinating that there were people who I somehow connected to their Jewish past from 600 years ago, like Catholics basically going to synagogue every Friday, not counting as a minyan, where in the States, sometimes we have Jews. We have trouble getting Jewish people to come to the synagogue, right? So, and in Israel as well. So it was something really struck me as fascinating. And I kept going back to the synagogue, of course, and I met more people who identified as Xueta. And then finally, Mikel Segura, who is in the film, he's the jeweler, sitting in front of the water behind him. He invited me after seeing me around the synagogue a couple of times, telling me the rabbi's in town. So the rabbi is this person named Rav Nissan, who you would have seen at the end of the film. He is now our official rabbi. He was not at the time that I got here. And he would come once a month to do a Friday night dinner. So I went and I started meeting different people who identified as Xueta, some who didn't. And I basically started hearing and learning about all these fascinating stories. And as I got more and more involved in the Jewish community, as you heard in the bio, my wife, Carla, and I, we started something called Limud Mallorca. Also, you see it here behind me. And it's this Jewish learning conference. And things started opening up. And it was around the time we had our second Limud conference when I was blessed to meet Ofer virtually. We didn't meet in person. And he had did an article about our Limud conference. And he was, I believe, living in Israel at the time. And I think this is a good moment to kind of pass the proverbial microphone to Ofer and to let him speak about how his involvement came with the film.
Well, hello, and thank you very much for having us here today. In short, I'm Ofer Lashevitsky. I'm Israeli. I was born in Haifa, northern Israel, but my family moved here to Spain, where I'm sitting now, near Barcelona. And in 2016, I came back to my country, to Israel, to work as a journalist, cameraman, and all this kind of related works in the media field. And in short, yeah, that's what happened. It was, if I'm not wrong, the beginning, spring of 2019, when I got in touch with Danny Rothstein to write this article. And we suddenly and really quickly had a really good personal connection. And I was really impressed about his passion and dedication to this story. And I will add that maybe one thing that triggered or pushed me to develop this story is not only untold in the Anglo-speaking world, also in Spain and in the Spanish world. The story of the Jews of Spain, the Inquisition, and particularly the Xueta phenomena is widely unknown. So it was also an important factor for me, like to get involved. I would say that it's a project that came to mind really fast, and it was like a really I don't know, maybe Israeli spirit of doing things really fast and without thinking twice, because we got in touch. 1 month later, our family met each other on a plane flight from Barcelona to Tel Aviv. I started to explain this story to my partner Felipe, who were and these times working with me together in a lot of video-related projects in Israel. And after a few talking with Felipe in Tel Aviv and a few Zoom, Skype talks along Danny Rodstein, the three of us came together or agreed to the idea of come to Mallorca for 10 days in September 2019, in a time where a lot of things related to the Jewish community, the Jewish history, the Jewish world were happening, concentrated in a short period of time. And we did like a really fast pre-production work, some interviews via Zoom. We tried like to have the big picture of the story with Felipe, but we were like thrown there to Mallorca without knowing it was even my first time there, of course, for Felipe. And it was a really, in some ways, improvised thing, I will say, but really fresh, really powerful. All the main characters that are shown in the movie were really grateful and open-minded, and we are still really grateful that they open up their houses and their hearts to us to explain a story that we still feel that it was important to tell. In short, I don't know, I have many things to talk about, but let's move to Felipe.
Hi everyone, thanks also for having us here. It's very exciting. Yes, I'm Brazilian from Rio de Janeiro. I live in Israel from 2007. I know Offer from, I don't know, 2016, 17, we're working together. And then one day he came with an idea. And what do you think to shoot in Mallorca in September? And I said, I'm in. I don't need to listen anything else. I'm in. And really, it was a super interesting story that I grew up in the community, in the Jewish community in Brazil. I was part of the youth movement. I consider myself very well educated in Jewish history, and also in the Mahanos, in the Conversos history, because we have also in Brazil a large community there. But chuetas I never heard about before, so it was like exciting to discover a new story, a new place, a new community. Like for me, it was very familiar. Like Offer said, we went there to 10 days just to make the movie, the 1 hour movie. So it's like every day shooting a lot, and in the houses of the people, they open up for us their houses. And like it was very fast and also very familiar, because I was listening like similar dilemmas that I known from my community in Rio. So like it's like entering in a small Jewish community and hearing the stories and the characters and the people. No, it's that's the most important. So it was really an great adventure for me at the time.
Thank you. I think what is important to mention is like a little bit of the timeline. Like what Felipe and Ofer didn't get to mention is that we really filmed this entire movie in 10 days. I mean, it was so run and gun, and Ofer and Felipe like landed and went straight to filming. And I think it's worth noting that, you know, in terms of the context, myself and Mikel and Pinchas, who is the kosher chef, and Ari Molina, who was sitting in the cemetery, the four of us were elected onto the board of directors just 1 year before. So there was this huge change that happened here in Mallorca, where two chuetas, for the first time in history, really, were elected to be leaders of the local Jewish community that really was just started and maintained for 45 years by expats, by people like me who were not from here, but came from away. So there was a lot going on, and I was very clear with Felipe and Ofer that I wanted to know what people were thinking, like where does this community want to go, like where, you know, how can we learn but in a safe way. So Felipe and Ofer were filming all of the scenes, and I was not present. I was only in the scenes where I'm in the film. I didn't want to be there because I'm a part of the story. I didn't want to implicate or have any of the interviewers have to change. I wanted them to feel as comfortable as possible. And it's a credit to Felipe and Ofer, really, with knowing these people very short amount of time, speaking with pre-interviews on the phone, and then getting here and getting their confidence and trust to explain everything that was happening. It's really, really special. I thought it would be fun if, Matt, you think it's a good time now to share two scenes that are actually deleted scenes, meaning they weren't really edited all the way, but there's some interviews that didn't make it into the film. And just for editing purposes and for timing, but there are two scenes that actually shed a lot of light on, you know, the backstory of this really fascinating story and its continual development. So perhaps while you're watching these two scenes, everyone else can keep adding questions to the Q&A, and then we'll be moving to the Q&A so we can continue speaking more. So the first scene we'll show is Mikel Aguilo, who is a shop owner in the city center of a store, a haberdashery that sells yarn, and well, you'll see in the film. This shop, he's a Xueta family, that this shop has been in his family since the year 1685. And it's an incredible story that he tells. And he's actually the brother of Rav Nissan, of the rabbi who is Xueta, who lives in Israel and is now the rabbi of our community. So that's the first deleted scene that we'll be sharing with you all.
Bueno, jo som en Miquel Aguiló, som l'onzena generació d'una família de botiguers, més concretament mercers, perquè sempre hem venut el que veus aquí, fils, cintetes, ventalls, botons i totes les punyetetes de merceria. I estava un negoci que fa això, 330 anys, que és de la mateixa família, que els meus avantpassats varen comprar a la Inquisició, perquè antes era d'un jueu convers que va haver de fugir de Mallorca perquè no el cremassin. I som d'una família Xueta que duim aquest negoci d'això fa 300 anys. Hem conservat una petita part dels documents que teníem, perquè la majoria se van fer malbé, i hem pogut rescatar una història que mon pare no coneixia. Ara mateix, si anaus en el carrer d'Argenteria, queda qualque negoci antic, representant per Xuetes, i si voleu entrar i parlar amb aquesta gent major sobre el tema Xueta, vos trobaran a de fora. No em volen parlar. Pensa que mon pare no tant, però la meva predina, per exemple, sí que va patir les seves cans, vull dir, quan arribava Pasco, que passassin per aquí, t'insultassin, o que te tirassin pedres, era una cosa que passava, i quan s'acostava la Pasco catòlica, que t'insultassin, assassins de Jesús. I hem pogut construir aquest arbre, que són 500 persones, tots, menys el meu sogre i ma mare, tots són xuetes, perquè no se mesclaven. I hem pogut, en verd, hem pogut construir des de on venia la botiga que va comprar el nostre avantpassat, l'any 1685. Xuetes, antes que xuetes, com la resta de mallorquins, se senten molt mallorquins. És una cosa que la meva filla sempre me diu: «Papà, si història és horrible, no m'agrada gens estudiar història». Clar, és un mètode que a l'escola la manera d'ensenyar història és aprendre fetges i aprendre noms. Però si aprenguéssim història contada des de les coses que han passat i per què han passat, seria molt més interessant, per exemple.
So that's Mikel Aguilo speaking about, I think, some really interesting themes about, why perhaps the younger generations aren't as interested in history as the older generations. A little bit about his experience or his parents' experience growing up as people with Xueta last names and suffering the discrimination. And we touch a little bit about it on the in the film. I don't know if you all remember this evening scene, which really was something fun to film. Again, very improvised, where I'm walking with Aaron, who's another director friend of mine, and speaking about an escape room. How can we make history more exciting so that the younger generations will want to learn about it, especially in this virtual age that we're moving into. And so I saw one of the questions already had asked is the Xueta history spoken about or taught about in local history schools? And it's really not. From what I understand, it's more of a social thing that is very taboo, that has gone from being a stigma into something that's just not being spoken about. And that's actually what Laura Miro Bonin, the young historian in our film, is really fighting for, to speak about this history. And so we're going into schools and talking about it. We're doing tours for people to see. And I'm very excited to share with you all that Ofer, Felipe, and myself, we were able to actually sell the rights to the film to the local TV station. And last September, it was on the local TV channel, and over 46,000 different homes tuned in to watch the film. And so we're hoping that one day we can actually get the documentary film into the public curriculum of the island, so more people can learn about this history that isn't so often spoken about. I think now we can show the other second video, and we have lots of questions coming in, so I think we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. This next video we want to share is an interview with Jacqueline Tobias. She's actually French, Jewish, been here living on the island since, I believe, the 60s or the 70s. And she's really been, an incredible mover and a shaker, hosting conferences, getting the Israeli ambassador from Madrid to come and donated 18 orange trees in a beautiful plaza here. She's done a lot of great work, and she has a very interesting story to tell as well about her settling down here in Mallorca and marrying someone who is not Xueta, but is from Mallorca, and how that resonated with the Mallorquin family. So here's the last deleted scene that we'll share with you today.
Bueno, yo soy...
Sorry about that. Okay.
Sobre el año 87, creo, salió a doble página que decían que iban a abrir una asociación cultural entre Baleares e Israel. Les contacté y en unos meses me convertí en la presidenta de esta nueva asociación, que se llama Instituto de Relaciones Culturales Baleares-Israel, y me convertí en su presidenta en septiembre del 87, y desde aquel entonces pues lo soy. No sé si porque tanto lo hago bien o porque nadie quiere asumir y hacer el trabajo, porque la verdad que prácticamente tienes que hacerlo todo sola. Hay que pensar que los chuetas siempre han tenido más marginado, mala etiqueta, hasta incluso mi suegra dijo: menos mal que es judía y que no es chueta. Sí, yo no me sentí ofendida, y pienso que nadie debe de pensar, porque es una señora que nació a principios del siglo XX y era un producto de su época y de su educación y de lo que hay aquí. Yo creo que ha pasado un poquito esto, porque yo creo que a jóvenes de edad de la universidad, tú les pides, ¿sabes algo de los chueta? Te dirá, ¿de qué? Creo que él ya ha pasado. Y en cierto sentido es un poco, da pena un poquito, porque ellos tenían sus raíces, su historia, su particularidad, y no creo que se debe de perder esto. De Xueta realmente poco volvieron a sus raíces. Miguel, como tú sabes, su esposa, que no es chueta pero que es mallorquina, Pinja, Chisca, y creo que los demás no eran españoles, que no eran ni chueta ni siquiera mallorquín. En el 91 estuvimos en casa del alcalde Xueta, Aguiló. Entonces le pedimos, no estaría bien por el 92 hacer algo en recuerdo de los últimos autos de fe. Y él dijo, sí, estaría muy bien, pero esto lo tendrá que hacer un alcalde que no tenga mis apellidos, porque en aquel momento tenía algún escrito, Xueta, Chuetón, en las paredes del ayuntamiento. Y efectivamente el año siguiente, o cuando dejó su cargo fue otro, lo pedí. Presentamos un proyecto y duró hasta el año pasado, que no se hizo. Había pedido que se pusiese en la plaza, detrás de la Plaza Cort, en la Plaza Santa Eulalia, donde es el encuentro de varios calles. Y era una cosa muy importante. La gente del barrio no le pareció bien. Entonces se hizo en la Plaza Cort, donde realmente ocurrió, y 20 años después, o 30, no sé.
So I'll just say one comment on that, you know, when I'm now giving these tours to visitors and to residents here, I actually end on that last line that we heard about the mother of her late husband saying, oh, she's Jewish, at least she's not Chueta. And that blows me away, because here's a Mallorquin woman who more or less would have been okay for her son to marry someone from another country, doesn't speak the language, is another religion, rather than the girl next door, who perhaps, you know, is Catholic, her family's been there all their life, they speak the local language, they're from Mallorca, their probably family's been from Mallorca forever, but just because of a last name, didn't want a stigma. And I don't, you know, fault that mother who thought that, because she's a product of her environment. They were just taught for years and years and years that these people were bad, that anyone with a last name that is Xueta, one of the 15 last names, you know, is not allowed to, you're not allowed to marry with them. And I think that shows how awful hate and intolerance really is. It has no, you know, rhyme or reason, that it comes from education. No one is born homophobic or racist or anti-Semitic. It's something that people learn. And so that's what we're trying to do with this film, is to fight bad education with positive and good education. So those are just some scenes that we thought were important, and we wanted to share with you all today. I guess what we can do now, Felipe, if there's a question or two about the cinematography and about drone footage, and maybe you wanted to speak about that, and actually, if it's okay with the organizers, I can go into some of the questions that are, you know, perhaps one word answers or one sentence answers, and I can start answering them there as well, and we can kind of field the questions as they come in order of how they're arriving.
Great. I just ask you to ask the questions, because I'm not seeing them. I'm on my phone. So if it's possible you to read the questions.
Sure, I can help out with that. So one question that came in, this is actually from good friends of mine, Dick and Margie Siegel. It's so lovely to see you on here. They wrote that we have a comment that the film was so beautiful, especially the scenery. Did you shoot the aerial views yourself? And I wonder if you could expand a little bit, Felipe, with how we filmed, 2 cameras. Did we shoot natural light? Did we have lighting? I guess talk a little bit about that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are a very small crew. Like in the shooting, just myself and Offer, and sometimes we had an extra hand from Danny Rosellas, who is also a friend of Danny from Mallorca, and actually who flew the drone. The aerial footage is from him. He made for us, like he had some and made for us shoot for us some locations that we asked, because it was very tight schedule there. So we didn't have time to go and shoot. We have planned to go and shoot one day of shooting with a drone, but we didn't have time. So he did afterwards with Danny. A very small crew, very light equipment, two small cameras like mirrorless cameras, microphones, and that's it. Like one tripod, and that's all the equipment that we had. No, in some scenes we had a light also in the interviews, but it's a small one, very very light. It was like Danny said in the beginning, like totally run and gun, very natural to like for us. It was my first time in Mallorca, and also from Offer, the first time in Mallorca. So we tried to keep the enchantment that we have from the island in the movie. Like if I'm seeing something that is beautiful, I'm gonna shoot it right now. I don't have any other opportunity. So it's beautiful. It's in the movie. It's beautiful there in the movie also. Like all the time with the camera, all the time shooting very spontaneously, like wandering around and very like enchanted from the beauty of the island. Maybe Offer want to add something in this, because I also Offer shoot some scenes with the second camera besides the interview that he managed to make.
I will just say that it was fun but challenging. Yeah, because we see the documentaries on Netflix or HBO, whatever. You see a lot of stuff in the credits. Here we are, just three guys like sharing all the credits all together. No, and maybe I will add the fact of the post-production and editing thing, that it was also not so easy to handle. We all remember a thing called coronavirus and a pandemic that fucked up the whole world, and it did it also with our lives. We were, Felipe and me, in Israel, stuck in our homes. Danny was in Mallorca, and we had all this material, more than 30 hours, if I'm not wrong. Now we reviewed these two scenes that I think that are really interesting and also add really important content to this story. And it was really challenging to do this editing and post-production process on the long distance with few resources, but a lot of passion and a lot of dedication also from other people who slowly joined the project, mainly because they also get involved. It touched them in some way, let's say. And that's it. I mean, in my point of view, I still feel very proud of this story and this documentary. And maybe I will take my time to relate to another question written by Laura about identity, which I think that it's the main point of this film, or at least for me, it's like my favorite issue. We touch a lot of points here. We talk about the chuetas. We talk about not a past story, but a living story. I will add that there are some documentaries, true, maybe, Danny, if I'm not wrong, but really kind of historical documentary with people sitting and talking to a camera for 15 minutes. And in some way, we can say that it's boring to watch. And our goal here was to show like a living history, living people, and to be really close to the main characters, and to show these dilemmas and complexities about identities going on in this small but particular Jewish community. What is to be Xueta? What is to be a Jew? Also, these national frictions that are between the more Mallorcan and Catalan nationalists, let's say, and the more Spanish-speaking people. It was also a time here in Catalonia and Mallorca of a national friction. People ask, what about the Xueta community? And we ask, there's something called the Xueta community, because we must add here that we have this revival of 3-4 people who are going through a really interesting and process. But mainly, most of the Chueta people in Mallorca, especially the younger generations, are not even aware that they are Chuetas. This guy that we showed in the store, Miquel Aguiloa, who speaks that we are a really old store run by Chuetas for centuries. Maybe it's the last generation of people who acknowledge that he's a Chueta and feels a Chueta, and even his family members experience this discrimination. But me and Felipe, we were just hanging out in Mallorca and meeting people, and some of the people we met and chat were Chuetas, but it's like I don't know, not important factor in their life. So it's
and also as like an urgency to the movie, like before the story fades away, like the Xueta that came back to the community, they have like 74 or 70 years old. The history is fading away, unfortunately. So it was like okay, let's do it before still we don't have we also let's do it now. That is it's a history from the present. It's not something from the past. It's something that is happening now. That was in our heads all the time, that we want to tell what's happening now. Okay, we have to tell what happened in the past, but just to explain, just to get what is happening here and now. That's the idea.
In one last point, and then we can move to other questions. It's like for me was so impressive to realize Danny was talking about this prejudice based on lack of education, knowledge, whatever. But here it's a special point of ignorance. I mean, people were discriminated. I mean, the Chuetas were involuntary Jews. They are not Jews. Most of them, they don't care. They don't feel Jewish, wherever. And they will, as this woman that we saw the scene right now told, I mean, no, it's okay. She's Jewish. She's not Chueta. It shows how much ignorance and how stupid was this prejudice. And for me, as a Jew, as a journalist, as someone who gives a lot of importance to learning the history, I felt especially impressed about the ignorance of this anti-Semitism, but if we can call it like that. It's a really weird and strange story.
Thank you. So we'll go back to the Q&A. I realize now that some may not be able to read the answers, but I actually have been putting some answers in. So for those who ask the questions can keep, we love as many questions as possible, so we'll try and get through as many as possible. I think I just want to touch on a quick point about languages, because there's a lot that have coming up, so I think this might answer a number of the questions. Basically, to be very clear, the word chueta is actually a Mallorquin word. Okay, so the language that we speak here in Mallorca is Spanish, and also Mallorquin, which is a dialect of Catalan, right? Spanish and Catalan, two separate languages, very different. Buen provecho is have a good meal in Spanish, and bon profit is enjoy your meal in Catalan. It sounds a lot like French. And so this word chueta is really from Mallorca. It's not from anywhere else. And though we spoke about it, you know, in the film, it's worth mentioning that, and I can actually share my screen so you can see it here written. I think that's easier for everyone to see. There's a number of derivations of where this word comes from, right? So one of them is French, where dog is chien and a female owl is chouette. No one wants to be called those words, dogs or birds, you know. I don't really go for French because we don't speak French here. Xueta is actually the Catalan word for bacon or pork, and we learned about this in the film, right? Chuetas would cook bacon outside their homes, so people would think that they were no longer keeping kosher, no longer Jewish. So it was kind of this public display of working and dealing with bacon or pork. And then the word for Jew in Catalan is jueu. So a not nice way to call someone Jewish is jueto, you little Jew. And so a mixture of the bacon and pork with the word for little Jew might be where this word chueta is coming from. And just kind of like tackling a couple of the language questions, particularly, someone had asked if they speak Ladino in the synagogue, and they don't. Ladino is actually a mix between Spanish, Castilian, and Hebrew. So in Mallorca and in Barcelona, they wouldn't have spoken Ladino here in medieval times. They would speak an older version of Catalan. Catalan is that separate language. So no, there's no Ladino being spoken. And then another question that came in was, is the language spoken by the Chuetas only theirs or spoken by non-Chuetas on the island? The answer is everyone speaks the same language here in Mallorca, which is Mallorquin, which is a dialect of Catalan. So no, the Chuetas do not have their own special language. And I'm just looking for a couple of other of the language specific questions. And if I come up with them, I'll answer them. Sorry, I'm going a little bit out of order, but I kind of wanted to group them by category, so I hope that's okay. Doug Sanderson had asked, why do you think we have heard about the word for Marrano Jews of Spain, but not the Chueta Jews of Mallorca? And I love this question because it's very clear that Marrano, which is Spanish for marran, pig, it actually is used today as someone who's a dirty swine, someone who's a filthy animal, someone who's a pig, a disgusting animal, is Spanish. And so much of our academia is in Spanish, and the Spanish Inquisition was administered in Spanish. When you look at the records, a lot of it is written in Old Spanish, not in Catalan. And the conquest of the New World, Latin America, was done by Castilians in Spanish. So I think we know of this word marrano because it's Spanish. We don't know of this word chueta because it's really specific to this island called Mallorca in the Mediterranean Sea, which really only opened up its doors to tourism in the 1950s, 1960s. And that's when the chueta stigma started going down, because people from outside the island, like myself, for example, would come here, and I don't know the difference between two people from Mallorca, one with the Chueta last name and the other with the not Chueta last name. That's not something that's obvious to a visitor like me. It's a really insular thing. It's something only from this island, which Ofer and Felipe had referenced, especially being outsiders coming to visit and document this story. So I think that's an important distinction. Yes, it's kind of the same thing, Marrano and Chueta, but Marrano is Spanish and Chueta is Mallorquin. And I don't know, maybe perhaps Ofer or Felipe, did you want to ask about, there's a couple questions that talk about women and wondering why there were not more women in the film. Were they unwilling to share? Was it difficult to find them?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
That's something that we noted, and we were a bit disappointed in the editing process because most of the main characters were finally male. Fortunately, the female that we have is so powerful, Laura Miró, that I'm grateful for that. But I think that it's just a matter of coincidence that the main characters of the story that was unfolding in these days in Mallorca were male. There's no just big explanation. I saw another question about the division in the synagogue, but I think that is more related to the character of the Orthodox character of the Mallorcan Jewish community. That is the rule followed in a lot of other communities along Spain. It's not, I think Danny knows more about that. It's not that related to the Chueta thing, but I don't know. Yeah, unfortunately, there weren't more women as the main characters of the film. But,
and also because we follow the leadership of the community, like so it's a question for the people from the community, why the women are not leaders there also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I will add, as a foreign visitor, let's say, spectator, that we don't feel any kind of discrimination or gender difference. I mean, for example, I did feel this kind of issues in Jerusalem or many other places, Orthodox places in Israel, for example. In this case, at least I didn't experience any kind of segregation issues or wherever. I think that in this case, it's a matter of coincidence, maybe.
Thank you. Going through some more of the questions that have come up, and kind of we'll do a little bit more in order because I think that's fair. Anonymous, someone who had asked, how early was the wall used, like the wall at the Kotel in Jerusalem? That's actually something we started, my wife and I, when we started doing the tours here. We saw that the Church of Mount Zion, the Western Wall, once upon a time, there was a synagogue there. And now the synagogue was taken down in 1321. And then eventually a church was put on top of that site. But because I heard rumors, in the synagogue, speaking with Mikael and Tony, all the people you saw in the film, about, their ancestors. There was this legend that people would rub their hands up against the side of the wall, creating like a dent. Right next to that line in the wall, there was this area that looked to me like the Kotel. And so on these tours, I just thought this idea would be lovely for people to have this experience, to have this physical, moment where they can, if they wanted to, write a note and have this experience this ritual of like going to the Kotel in Jerusalem. Now, I have gotten many feedback, specifically from Mikel Segura, the jeweler in the film, that it's like inventing something that never happened. And I stand by it by saying, yes, it's very clear. No one is making up that this is the wall that used to be the synagogue. It's very clear in all the tours that it's a wall of a church, that where the synagogue used to be. But it's still, I think, important because it brings visibility, it brings attention to this story. And now, more and more, I keep seeing, notes, populating this Western Wall. And so, perhaps it's a tradition that will go on. Maybe it won't. I know they're renovating the church in probably a year or two, so maybe they're going to take it all down. But I have to say, very interestingly enough, in the 3 years that we've been doing this, no one from the church, no one from the city has ever gone and, removed all the papers. They've just kind of left there. And so I wonder if that means that, the city itself is interested in sharing more of this Jewish history. And especially with our film and how well it's been received here, it certainly seems to feel that way. Also, please, Ofer and Felipe, while you're looking at the questions, if you see one that you'd like to respond to, feel free to.
Maybe I see here a question asking about the relation of the Chueta and the Orthodox communities in Mallorca, and maybe I see that a lot of people after watching our movie have a lot of questions about Chueta communities, and I think that it's important to make a distinction here. Even I will say that our first screening I was in Mallorca. It was like our opening screening in Mallorca City along Danny and his family. It was a beautiful moment. But there's one thing that happened that it's maybe important to mention. There's another association working on behalf of keeping alive the Xueta Memorial History of Mallorca. But in some way, they were a little bit upset with the angle of our movie because on their opinion, we talked too much about the Jewish issue or about this Jewish conversion or return and all this mysticism, whatever. And they feel that the Xueta thing must not be connected to the issue of the current Jewish community. They feel like Xuetas with a commitment to their story and the suffering of their families in the past, but they feel disattached completely about Judaism, religion, whatever. And they were not angry, but they know that maybe the focus of our project was not maybe the good thing to do. And the point that I want to mention here is again that we cannot talk, I think, about the Chueta community at all. I mean, it's important, and I think that it's crucial that we show this movie and we talk about this story. And people like Laura Miró, the historian in the movie, is doing an amazing work in education, schools, whatever. But we cannot talk about the relation with Orthodox Jews with the Chuetas. There are like just a few Chuetas who decided to came back and they joined the community. We need to add also with not a few with the big problematics, let's say. I mean, you know, the Jewish world is complex, complicated, and in some ways it's tough. So some people didn't accept in good way like that. Now the Chuetas come here to the community and even to the became the main characters of the community. It wasn't like a good idea for everyone there. So that's what I wanted to mention, that it's important to make this association and to know that some people who still works on behalf of the Chueta memory don't do it like in connection to the Jewish side of the story. It's really complex.
To try and make it less complicated, if that's even possible, I'll just share with my screen because someone had asked to see the 15 Xueta last names. So hopefully you can see that on your screen. Now, keep in mind, everyone, to the locals here in Mallorca, all of these names for perhaps us in the United States look like Rothstein, Goldstein, Goldberg, Spielberg, right? These are like Jewish sounding last names to us in the United States. Here locally, when someone sees these names, they automatically connect, well, the older generation, I should say, that these are Chuetas. These are people who come from the Hebrews, who come from the Jews that were converted here, you know, in the 1400s. So, and not everyone, right? Some of them might know that they're different or that you shouldn't marry them. And again, this is something that has lost its taboo, its stigma in the last 20 years. And just to kind of answer, again, an anonymous person who wrote, can you talk more about the differences between the non-Xueta Jews and the Jews in Mallorca? It was a bit confusing, especially when the young man said he wanted to be like Jews in New York. I would argue that most Jews in New York actually celebrate Jewish holidays, at least high holidays and Passover. So this person was a bit confused. And basically you're referencing Xueta, who is a philosophy professor, a young Xueta, who says very clearly he's not interested in getting back, returning to this memory. And he's more interested in becoming more like a Jew in New York or a modern Jew today and not acting like a Xueta Jew from 1400. Interestingly enough, he actually did complete his conversion just 3 months ago in Israel. So he officially returned to Judaism. And, you know, he's someone who is more perhaps open-minded than some of the older generations. And to respond to Laura, who wrote, issue of identity so strong by end of the film and divisions within the community, what has happened since the release of the community? A number of things have happened. For starters, we were able to do a Jewish day school like on Sundays once a month, where we had 2 Israeli teachers starting with 20 children to mainly expats, no one from a Xueta family sending their kids, but mainly Israelis or people from England or France and other places, Argentina. So that was once a month, which has happened for 2 years. Also, obviously, the pandemic has been taking place, so we were able to renovate a lot of the synagogue. So it's the synagogue area where we pray is much cleaner, is much nicer now, although it's still suffering a lot of problems with flooding and drainage that's coming through after every rain that we have. And probably the most important thing is that Rav Nissan, who is Xueta, is coming 10 days every month. So we were able to get a grant from Madrid, from the Federation of the Communities here in Spain, to pay for a rabbi. And we chose Rav Nissan, who is ultra-Orthodox. Now, if I'm adding my own commentary here, I don't know if he's the right rabbi for the expat community. He doesn't speak English very well. Perhaps he's not the person most charismatic who's going to go to the different homes of the Jews on Mallorca and help put up a mezuzah or organize a Shabbat dinner and perhaps, make it a little bit more welcoming. Perhaps it's a little bit more focused on the chuetas. Very often in the interviews, he's constantly saying any chueta who wants to come to the synagogue is more than welcome. So there is this, I think, especially coming from Mikhail and the rabbi, this interest to get other chuetas to come and return to their faith, where perhaps the expats like myself, while we think this is a fascinating story, we're also very focused on the children and to continue this community. And I think Ofer actually asked that question to Mikhail. This story has an expiration date, like, are your children coming to the synagogue? Are your grandchildren coming to the holidays? And the answer is no, because a lot of the children and the grandchildren of the chuetas are not interested in any kind of religion, not Judaism, not Catholicism. So they probably will not be passing on their return to Judaism. So that's just something that I wanted to share. Ofer, Felipe, there was a question that I wanted to read out. Perhaps maybe one of you could answer about the rest of Spain and about the last names. Someone asked, I remember meeting a young girl in Santander, Spain, many years ago, who could recite her apellidos, her last names, back many generations on both her maternal and her paternal sides. Is that generally true for people from Spain, Catalonia, Mallorca? One would think that the 15 last names would become hidden over time, or is this what actually has happened?
Yeah, there's an humor movie called Los Ocho Apellidos Vascos, the 8 Basque surnames that relates to this topic. I think that it's not a matter of, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that it's not that connected to the Xueta or Jewish story. It's a really Spanish thing that people here in Catalonia, where I'm now, or in the Basque Country or other areas, can relate all their family surnames back to many generations. I cannot tell the origin of this tradition, but still I have people here in my hometown that recall this story and know all their surnames. But I think that it's like a separate story. Mm-hmm.
So Jill asked, I love that your synagogue is framed as a learning center. That is so inclusive. Do you feel more chuetas will be awakened to their identity and realize the importance? How is the word of the synagogue spreading? And I was just typing, but I'll say it on camera, that actually very few chuetas are entering the synagogue and expressing an interest in attending Friday night services. They might do it once to see what it's about, but then they're probably not coming back and over time. There actually is really complicated to go through a conversion or a return process here in Spain. Right now, we are under the jurisdiction of the London Beit Din, which is incredibly difficult. Last year, we had a representative of the London Beit Din come visit our community, interview a lot of the candidates who wanted to convert. I don't know why they did this, because when they left, they said, oh, no one can convert from Mallorca because there isn't a mikveh there. So without a mikveh, you don't have a community. Without a community, you can't convert there. So it was pretty heartbreaking, to be honest, for many people who still are interested in converting. It's getting harder and harder, to be honest, with the Israeli rabbinate and the London Beit Din to find ways to enter, especially from an Orthodox perspective, into the Jewish faith. And I think that's an error, in my opinion. I think that we should be making it not easier, but more accessible, and that learning about Judaism shouldn't be hard or difficult or secret. If people are interested in learning about it, there should be ways for them to learn about it and not have to struggle so much. I understand that there's this rule, right? You have to reject an interested convert 3 times before you can accept them. But at this point, it feels like 8 or 9 or 10 times, and my heart goes out to those who all they want to do is learn and know a clear path of how to, be accepted by the Jewish people. And sadly, that's not the case.
Let me add one point here also as a foreign spectator, and make for people in the US to better understand your situation, Danny, that if Danny were based in Barcelona, it will be easier to solve these debates, because we have bigger in terms of number of Jewish communities. So here in Barcelona, for example, we have Chabad, we have the Orthodox traditional community, but we do also have Reform and conservative community where I did my bar mitzvah back then. But in Mallorca, they are just, I don't know in numbers, but they are really small communities, so they cannot, well, that's their debate, but it's harder to split and form other groups or other communities. Here in Barcelona, we have, for example, a group collective called Mosaica, which is not even a synagogue, which is only dedicated to spread and talk about Jewish culture. They do a lot of events, research, whatever, and it's not even a synagogue or a Jewish community. So I just wanted to add this important point as a foreign spectator, because Mallorca is a really tiny place. I don't know in how many Jews live in these days there, but it was also another complexity for Danny and all the people there, like to handle these classical Jewish debates without the viability of having this chance of splitting, because it's almost impossible to achieve. Guys, I will need to leave you here because I need to pick up my daughter Noah. But thank you very much. And Danny and Felipe, do your best until the end of the question and answer.
Toda lecha, Ofer. Toda raba.
Bye.
I was if everyone still wants, if you still want to answer a few questions, we can take a few more questions, a little more time. I understand that we're a few minutes after 1 o'clock now for you and for our participants. So for those of you that want to stay and join, and if Danny and Felipe, if you're willing to answer a few more questions, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say that for anyone who's interested in watching the film again, or perhaps bringing it to their home community, or purchasing it as a gift and sharing with a relative that you think would love it, you just really easily can find us online at chuetaislandthemovie.com. I'll actually type it into the chat so everyone can see it, or maybe I'll just do a share screen. So there you can see our website, which Felipe, Ofer, and I worked really hard on, so we hope you all enjoy it. chuetaislandthemovie.com. You'll find our contact information there. And we're still very much interested in sharing it in Jewish film festivals, different communities at home. So yeah, please feel free to get in touch. I know some people ask for a private tour. Some people ask to get in touch with the community if they want to visit and do a Shabbat dinner. You could always get in touch with us that way. So that's one answer that we wanted to give. There are a couple quick questions that I can really quickly answer. And that's basically, is the current Xueta rabbi ultra-Orthodox? The answer is yes, but he's very open. For example, we have a Costa Rican Jew who is a man, and the mother is from Mallorca, who is not Xueta and not Jewish. She was not born Jewish. She's Catholic. They had a son, and they really wanted to do a bar mitzvah. He was willing to do a bar mitzvah type ceremony, right? So even though he's ultra-Orthodox, perhaps halachically he wouldn't be allowed because the boy turning 13 is not technically Jewish. His mother isn't Jewish, but he still allowed the boy to read from the Torah on a Sunday, I believe. It wasn't a Saturday. I apologize for not knowing the exact details because I wasn't in attendance. I was off the island at this time, but I know that he made an attempt, a very beautiful attempt, to be as open and inclusive as far as he's able to, with halakha allowing him to. So I want to be clear about that. He's ultra-Orthodox, but very much understands that, he himself was born and raised Catholic in Mallorca, returned and converted to Judaism, and is trying to help people on their journey. So I think that's important. Doug asked, one of my favorite questions, is Chabad on the island? The answer is no. I know, shocking. Chabad is everywhere. Chabad is even in Ibiza, which only has 100,000 people total. Well, Mallorca has 1 million people. We have more Jewish people living in Mallorca than Ibiza, but the Israeli family that has a house in Ibiza, from what I understand, financially supports the Chabad rabbi who's in Ibiza. And so there's no people currently in Mallorca that are interested to pay to have a Chabad come and open up here. I also think, this is my own opinion here, that Chabad may not want to open a Chabad center because there might be a lot of people who are Catholic, but who identify as having Jewish roots, want to come and participate. And then Chabad really wouldn't know how to react to that, because Chabad is not usually in the business of converting people to Judaism. They're really in the business of Kiruv, bringing people who are born Jewish closer to halachic or being more religiously observant. But I personally, if I'm adding my opinion here, would love to see Chabad here, because I think it would allow for many people who have a second home here, or who are tourists, who want a kosher restaurant, who want a minyan, daily minyan, who want to observe Judaism perhaps more closely than myself, for example. But I think that should be an option here. And right now we're kind of doing the best we can, but we don't really have the people nor the means to do so. So I think Chabad can bring that infrastructure that we so badly need. The other questions that I saw happen to do with names. The answer is no. Jose Marti from Cuba and Joan Miro are both not Chueta, because their families, we've done the research, never came from Mallorca. So I understand that in a text. Only if your family are those 15 last names and we know for certain that they came from Mallorca, are you Chueta. Joan Miro, the famous artist, is from Barcelona. His family has always been from Barcelona. They never were from Mallorca. Hernan Cortez is a Chueta last name. Cortez the navigator is from Extremadura. He's from another part of Spain, so he's not Xueta. So that's just very clear. You have to have that last name and be from Mallorca in order to be considered Xueta. Is the current Xueta community now practicing Catholics, since for the most part they do not accept Judaism? Ofer kind of answered it before. There's kind of like 5 categories of Xuetas. Very quickly, I can tell you. The smallest group are the ones who've returned and are accepted and are halachic Jews now, because they've made their process. The second biggest group are the ones we showed the film to, that connect to this Xueta identity but don't want to have anything to do with becoming Jewish or practicing Judaism. The third are the ones who don't care either way. They're not really connected to their Xueta identity, but they're apathetic about it. The fourth group is what Laura is most interested in, the people who are younger, who don't even know that they have this incredible history, and that's who we're interested in sharing this history with as well. And the last group, very interesting, are kind of like the anti-Xueta Xuetas. They deny that they have any Jewish roots. They are super Catholic and very proud Catholics. And I walked into a jewelry store one time when I first started giving these tours, and I asked very naively, "Hey, I see your last name is Bonin. Are you Xueta?" And she said, "What? No, I'm Catholic. I'm very, very Catholic. Go on, get out of here. I don't want to talk about it." And she basically shooed me out of the store. And this happened 2015, 2016. So yes, the older generation still definitely feels this is a taboo subject. Art had asked, Judaism passes through the mother, Xueta passes through the last name. No, Xueta passes through the last name of either mother or father. It's not like you pass a Xueta to a specific way. Though there is a decree that was made by Rabbi Nissim Karelitz, a big Dayan who passed away recently, B'nai Barak in Israel, who said that if you are Xueta, he said this in 2011, from your mother's side, you do not have to do a conversion. You can do what's called a return, which again is basically the same thing. You have to go through mikvah, you have to go in front of a beit din, you have to study, but when you get your teudah, your certificate, it should say this person is not converting, it's that this person is returning to the faith of their ancestors, which is very important, as we've seen in the film, to many of them. Just kind of going very quickly to not miss any. DNA is fantastic. This is a huge topic we did not get into in the film, unfortunately, because it was just so big. Maybe we can do a sequel, Felipe, and figure out how to tackle the DNA question. It's just incredible what we are finding out now. The DNA of the Xuetas are more closely related to the Sephardim who come from Iran and Iraq than to their own next door neighbor because of this endogamy that took place. So there is talk, it's not confirmed yet, that some rabbis will accept you being Jewish and will open it up to these DNA tests that are now. And if that's the case, then the Xuetas, almost all of them will be considered Jewish right away because they have specific haploids, specific DNA that show that they have this incredible Jewish history. We talked about the last names. With all the intermarriage, we talked about there are genetic diseases like the Mediterranean fever that are found specifically among the Xueta people. In the message. Hopefully, Karen, you can see that I put a link to a Google Drive, and maybe we can send this out with the organizers, Matthew, all of the bibliography that people can go and learn more about the Chuetas and read these incredible books that have been produced, the 3 books in English that are out there that are available on Amazon. Anonymous asked, why did the man feel he had to divorce his wife? He's talking about Tony Pina. Well, Felipe, I mean, maybe you want to jump in for the interview you did with Tony Pina and his story about the divorce.
Yeah, okay. It was a very emotional scene. We're not expecting for that, but he opened up. I don't know. I don't think it's just because of the question with the. From my understanding, he was on a quest of his identity, and then he understood that maybe she was not the partner for it. I don't know exactly, but he decided to do it because he wanted, not because of the being Jewish or not being Jewish, or being Chuet or being Catholic. I think it's like more than that. I don't know. Maybe Danny knows more of his personal input.
No, you said it correctly, Felipe. I think this was just something as a process he wanted to do, and he never had the gumption to do so. And eventually he did this in his sleep, and they divorced. And then he met Chiska, who is his second marriage, and they definitely feel like they are 2 souls who met once again, that they knew each other previously, and they're an incredible couple. They got married under a chuppah by the Xueta rabbi, Rav Nissan, in Israel in 2018, and in my opinion, it's a historic event. 2 Chuetas married under a chuppah have returned to Judaism in Israel, getting married. It's nothing short of a miracle after what was attempted to do on this island of Majorca by the Inquisition. Just as we finish out here, and I have one last video to share because it's related to a question, that anyone who wants to get in touch on visiting Majorca, of course, feel free to get in touch with me. You can find our contact on the website, and there is no kosher food on the island as in terms of restaurants, but we do ship kosher meat in from the mainland to our community. And the last question that I wanted to share is, how did we get City Hall to pay for our celebration? City Hall basically every year does 1 day of Jewish culture, which we've now expanded to 2 months of Jewish culture celebration. And last December, I'm so excited to share with you all, and I'll share this little video as a closing. We did the first ever City Hall sponsored. We also got ROI and the Schusterman Family Foundation to help us out with a grant to do the first ever Hanukkah lighting, public lighting. We had over 400 people. It was the first night of Hanukkah, and it was also the final game of the World Cup, if you remember. So no Jews from Argentina came and no Jews from France came, but there were probably 90% non-Jewish people from Majorca who came to experience what Hanukkah was like. And here's a quick little video for you to get a taste of what that was like last December. Very, very excited to share this with all of you. So I just want to say in closing that none of this would be possible without the efforts of Felipe and Ofer, who put in so much time, energy, and passion into making this film, and also to all of you for being willing to learn about this story that's very far away from home. And all of the organizers, Becky, Matt, everyone at Haberman, thank you so much for having us. It's been an incredible honor to be here today.